Hello, what's going on, my babies? We're back after a long day of coding, my guys. Long day of coding, refactoring, and decision-making adjustments. Uh, uh, Maybe I lost touch of how people can be, man, because the person I'm talking to, even when we're only discussing work, tends to get emotional. And I think I'm calm. I'm not sure though. Maybe because I'm calm, he's taking offense to it. But it just made me realize that I'm putting a lot of responsibility on him and that I'm abdicating some of my responsibility instead of like doing things myself. He's gonna hate me though because I restructured a lot of things today, which means all he has to do on Monday is fix basically based on the new things that I did. But I think he likes it that way. He's one of those people that only learns, that only does something until it's finished, and how it got done doesn't really matter to him. So, I don't know, but there are definitely like those kinds of programmers. There are people like me that literally just want to understand. Like, why write 20 lines of code when you can write one? But anyways, taking charge feels good because like I was like super in the zone today. It's like all I wanted to do was just, okay, I want to do this. I have to finish this. Should I do it this way or that way? And then going back and forth and asking myself and talking to ChatGPT and discussing it and telling them my thoughts and having feedback and then reflecting on that. But at the end of it, basically, it was complete. It was set, no errors from my side, but it has to change because it's changing data. So I don't have to have any conversation with him anymore about how he's getting the data. Now all he does is just like, okay, this is what I want, and he has the structure, and then for 3, 4 days he just goes and gets the job done. That's the plan, but let's see how Monday looks like. Anyways, today's video is any direction comes with some form of expectation. Now, I want to point at something here. See this? These two were literally written like 3, 4 minutes apart. It's same handwriting, same sleight of hand, same something. But the other one had a video on it for some reason. And the other one is interesting because the other video afterwards, or the other one marked as a video afterwards, feeling distant is an expectation in itself. What the fuck was I on? I've been sober for a long time, by the way. A long time. So sometimes I'm in the mood and I kind of like vibe a bit. Most of the time, I'm fucking sober. Been sober for over like 9 months now. So any direction comes with some form of expectation. Feeling distant is an expectation itself. Let's make them one video so we don't fuck around too much. Why would I say any direction? Because I think in our decision making process, we're always kind of like valuing our steps, right? And uh, on what basis do we not decide the value? Because you're putting the value on something, right? You're putting the responsibility of this value that you're expecting from the choice of direction. Though our choice of direction could be very much self-destructive, whether we're aware of it or not. But maybe like our lack of awareness if our direction is a self-destructive one is probably because we are our expectations are way off. That's where self-destruction kind of comes from because if you're entering something and you know exactly what you're expecting out of it, or you know exactly what the outcome would look like, then ultimately you understand yourself very well. But if you're approaching something and you're expecting something, but that doesn't get the bigger the gap between your expectations and the outcome, let's just put it that way, is the bigger the gap between you and yourself. What I'm focusing on here is expectation. Because when I choose a direction, I am I'm expecting something. It's gonna come with some expectations because my choice of that direction basically was allocated. That's the word I was looking for. We allocate value to the outcome. And how off we are in that return when it comes to the value is basically the gap between us and ourselves. So, but the video afterwards is the interesting one. The reason I said feeling distant is an expectation itself. Kind of like shouted that I was feeling distant. And the reason I was feeling distant is because I was having an expectation that failed. And I'm probably feeling distant for from a friend or a family member, or just like some like it feels like a person. I was talking about a person. I wasn't talking about like a thing. Because for me, like everything I do, uh, I don't gauge the distance between me and it. I just approach it as if it's already within me. And what I'm doing is I'm exploring the relationship. And that's beautiful because when it comes to the world and reality, that's how you kind of like develop yourself into the person who has it around them, whatever it is. So a feeling of distance, dis of, I'm feeling distant is definitely like directed towards somebody. So, so it's funny because there's a high chance I was feeling distant, and then was like, no, any sense like I could go in his direction, which or her direction, which comes with expectations, or I would basically go in another direction, which comes with its own expectations. And that's probably the debate that was going through my head. But the reason I say person is because I have no control over the people. It doesn't matter what I do, right? Like it doesn't matter what you do. If somebody, for example, has a piece of land that they don't want to sell, it doesn't matter the amount of money you give them. They'll never sell it if they don't want to sell it. So they have sovereignty over their decision making and over their part of the relationship with you. Whilst when it comes to reality life, when life, as long as you play with it, it basically gives you what you want. But if you're only thinking of yourself, it basically just allows you to create these. If you're playing with yourself, you create boundaries between you and life. If you play with her life, like the energy, right? Like the cosmic energy, the vibe, the feeling, all of that are just basically a reflection of everything that's consistently moving, the universal truth, which is change. And I did a video once that we're not alive, we are life, because we're the evolution of that one thing that at one point existed, and then it kept growing and growing and growing. And that's consciousness manifesting itself this in this realm that we actually exist. So discussing the expectation, uh, uh, the expectations come with like what's the outcome, and the outcome is based on the value allocated to it. And again, like everyone, the value is subjective because you get to decide what's your value. How do we decide how we come close to to assessing our expectations based on the value that we attach to them, that we allocate to the outcome. So we're attaching value to the expectations, but we're allocating that value to the outcome. And then basically there are two values here that we're considering. We're considering the value of the outcome versus the value of our expectations. Normally, all we focus on is the value of our expectations because that's the only thing we can imagine. And the value of the outcome is basically either going to be lower or higher. And sometimes it's lower, but it's still okay. Sometimes it's higher, but it's bad. So, what are our those assessments of our expectations are telltale sign or a tell sign, are a sign of how we actually are. Well, they're a sign of the relationship between us and ourselves. Because the closer we are to ourselves, the closer we are to the truth of what we're interacting with is. Because if you know who you are, then you're able to gauge the distance, right? And then you're able to assess your expectations differently. Or at the very least, you're able to assess the value you're applying to the expectations differently. Because you could very much understand the value of the outcome, but your expectations will be different. So you could be smart enough to understand the value of the outcome, but not know yourself enough to understand the value of expectation, to understand the value you're placing on your expectation. And I feel like that's something that should linger heavier when it comes to these two notes, two scripts. Kind of want to run the same thing over and over again. I like it. All right, guys, it's a video.